Bold stories, uncharted futures. Welcome to Starlight Sci-Fi, where the stars are just the beginning. The title card lights up. Humanity's battleship arrives and the galaxy learns the meaning of fear. In the cold void of space, fear has a language. For millennia, it belonged to the galaxy's apex species until one fateful moment, when a shadow larger than anything they'd imagined arrived. Humanity's first interstellar battleship had emerged, and with it, a lesson that would rewrite the galaxy's understanding of power. For eons, the galaxy had thrived in a fragile balance of power, dominated by ancient and advanced civilizations. Alien races with unimaginable technologies controlled vast stretches of space. Their fleets were unmatched, their empires expansive, and their rule uncontested. Each race lived in its own sphere, a monarchy of sorts, with countless worlds under their sway. The Xilar, the Keldar, the Orazi, and others, each held their territories as if the galaxy belonged to them. They governed not through diplomacy, but through fear. Their dominance was absolute, and the idea of an invader capable of disrupting this equilibrium was nearly unthinkable. Then, one day, something unexpected happened. A ship appeared, no announcement, no grand declarations, no heralds of war. It was a single, massive vessel, drifting silently on the outskirts of known space. It wasn't a fleet, nor was it a battle-ready armada. It was alone, a solitary presence moving across the stars like a shadow. It didn't emit the usual signatures of a warship, no energy trails, no communication signals, no radar pulses. Its presence was almost subtle, but to those who noticed, the implications were impossible to ignore. The ship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Its design was alien, yes, but more in the sense that it felt out of place in the cosmos, as though it didn't belong to any known race. Its dark, reflective hull absorbed the light around it, giving it an almost spectral appearance. To those with keen eyes, it seemed to move with an unnerving grace, as though it were not simply gliding, but navigating between dimensions themselves. The ship had no visible engines, yet it moved with precision and purpose. Despite the silence, the arrival of this vessel didn't go unnoticed. Deep in the heart of the Xilar Empire, sensors detected the ship's faint trace, a disturbance so subtle it could easily be dismissed. But the Xilar were experts in reading the stars, and they knew something was wrong. Something foreign had arrived, and no one knew what it wanted. A series of hushed communications spread through the Galactic network. Messages were sent, orders were given, but no one dared approach. For all the advanced weaponry and technologies the galaxy had at its disposal, there was a growing sense of unease. The Titan, as it came to be known by those who had witnessed its arrival, hadn't made a move. It hadn't fired a single shot, nor had it even engaged in any meaningful way. And yet, the galaxy could feel its weight. It was a predator that had silently entered the hunting grounds, and no one knew what it would do next. And so, the galaxy waited, suspended in a state of fear, uncertain whether this was the beginning of a new war or the end of an era. The Titan had arrived, and the silence it brought was louder than any weapon. As the Titan lingered at the edge of known space, a ripple of unease spread throughout the galaxy. The first to react were the Xilar, one of the most feared and technologically advanced races. Known for their swift and brutal tactics, the Xilar had built an empire that spanned hundreds of star systems. They had crushed countless civilizations and turned whole worlds into ashes in their pursuit of dominance. Their military might was legendary, and their fleets armed with weapons that could obliterate entire planets were the pride of their empire. Yet, despite their strength, the Xilar were not accustomed to the unknown, and that was exactly what the Titan represented, something entirely alien, something beyond their understanding. The arrival of the Titan posed a threat unlike any the Xilar had ever faced. It wasn't just a foreign ship, it was a presence, silent and unnervingly patient. No demands had been made, no attacks launched, yet the mere existence of this vessel in their proximity was enough to unsettle the entire empire. The Xilar could not afford to ignore it. The unknown was always the greatest enemy, and they knew better than anyone that leaving such a mystery unchecked could lead to disastrous consequences. In a series of covert transmissions, the Xilar military leadership convened, and within hours, a full-scale response was ordered. A fleet was dispatched immediately, sizable, formidable, and heavily armed. Their strategy was straightforward: approach the Titan, neutralize it, and establish that the galaxy still belonged to the established powers. The Xilar did not believe in negotiation. They believed in annihilation, and they were confident their advanced weapons would swiftly deal with any potential threat. Yet even as the fleet assembled, an unsettling thought lingered in the minds of the Xilar commanders. Why had the Titan not moved? Why had it not attacked? Was it waiting for them to make the first move, or was it simply observing, calculating? The Titan had no obvious weaknesses, no sign of life aboard it, no detectable energy signatures. It was as if the ship existed outside the rules of conventional warfare, which only fueled the growing anxiety among the Xilar. The fleet set course for the remote planet where the Titan had settled. The planet was nothing special, an uninhabited, resource-rich world located far from any major space lanes, but it had become the focal point of the galaxy's attention. The Xilar's fleet moved swiftly, their ships cutting through space like a sharpened blade. Their mission was clear: eliminate the unknown threat and restore the order they had held for centuries. But as the fleet approached the planet's orbit, something extraordinary happened. The Titan did not wait for them to engage. It simply watched. The fleet's sensors began to glitch and flicker, their weapon systems faltering as if they had encountered an invisible wall. The Xilar's vast fleet, boasting the finest ships the galaxy had ever seen, was suddenly at the mercy of something far beyond their understanding. The tension in the command ship grew thick. Something had gone terribly wrong, and the galaxy was about to learn a terrifying truth. This wasn't going to be a battle. It was something much worse. The Titan had arrived, and the Xilar were already in its grip. The Xilar fleet arrived at the remote planet, their ships gliding through the void with a calculated precision. Their commanders, experienced in the ways of galactic warfare, were confident they could neutralize the Titan quickly. They had faced every form of resistance imaginable: swarming fleets, hidden weapons, and even mind-bending tactics from rival species. But nothing could have prepared them for what they encountered upon arrival. As their ships moved into orbit, the first signs of something terribly wrong began to unfold. The sensors, once sharp and reliable, started to malfunction. Communications with the fleet became patchy, erratic static replaced voices. The officers at the helm tried to troubleshoot the systems, but nothing worked. Then, without warning, the weapon systems on the lead ships locked up. The cannons that were supposed to fire with the press of a button refused to function. The fleet was paralyzed, helpless in the face of an unseen force. It wasn't a missile, or an energy blast, or any form of visible attack. The Titan had done nothing. And yet, their entire fleet had been rendered useless. The commanders tried to issue commands, but nothing worked. Their ships, once powerful and nearly invincible, now felt like toys in the hands of a far superior force. The fleet was no longer a coordinated fighting unit. It was a helpless mass of vessels, drifting in the wake of the Titan. Then came the realization. The Titan wasn't attacking. It wasn't firing weapons or launching drones. It wasn't even making a move. It was simply disabling them, one by one, without lifting a finger. Every time they attempted to regain control, the Titan's presence seemed to tighten its grip, paralyzing their ships further. It was as though their every move was anticipated, their every defense countered before they even knew they needed it. Panic began to ripple through the Xilar fleet. The realization that they were powerless against a single ship, with no idea how or why this was happening, sent waves of fear coursing through the command ranks. They tried to hail the Titan, to demand answers, to understand what kind of weapon could disable entire fleets without even firing a shot. But there was no reply. The Titan was silent, still, watching them from the planet below, its dark hull a void in the stars. In the midst of this growing terror, something even stranger occurred. As the Xilar fleet's attempts at communication failed, their ship systems began to malfunction in ways that defied logic. Internal networks went dark. Navigation controls became erratic, sending ships drifting helplessly through space. The once confident Xilar soldiers, known for their ruthless efficiency, now found themselves scrambling to maintain control of their own vessels. And still the Titan did nothing. It simply hovered in orbit, its silence heavier than any bombardment. There was no need for a battle, no need for weapons. The Titan had already won, not by force, but by sheer, unnerving presence. The first encounter with humanity had not been a war, it had been a warning. The galaxy had been so sure of its own power, its own invincibility, that it had failed to realize what they were truly up against, an enemy who did not need to fight to win. The Xilar had underestimated humanity, and in doing so they had learned a terrifying truth. The greatest weapon humanity possessed was not its firepower, but its ability to make its enemies fear the very idea of war. The galaxy, it seemed, was no longer safe. The shocking failure of the Xilar fleet sent ripples of panic throughout the galaxy. News of the Titan's mysterious power spread quickly, reaching every major civilization in the galaxy. The Xilar, the once feared rulers of the stars, had been reduced to helpless victims by a single ship. The implications were undeniable. Humanity had arrived, and with them came a power no one could comprehend or resist. Fear settled over the Galactic Council, a governing body composed of representatives from the galaxy's most dominant species, all of whom had enjoyed centuries of unchallenged dominance. In a time of such uncertainty, the Council's response was immediate, though no one truly knew what they were facing. The Titan had moved through the galaxy like a specter, appearing in orbit around a remote, unimportant planet, and paralyzing one of the most advanced empires without so much as a single shot fired. The question echoed through every chamber. What was this ship? Who commanded it? And why had it made its move now? The Council convened hastily, an assembly of the galaxy's greatest minds and most powerful leaders. Each species brought its own strength to the table, from the Keldar's technological prowess to the Urasi's vast armies. They had faced challenges before, but none had ever posed a threat like this. What terrified them most was the mystery of it all. The Titan's technology was unknown, its capabilities unimaginable, and its intentions impossible to discern. With urgency in the air, the Council agreed on a plan. A delegation would be sent to make contact with the Titan, to learn its purpose and, if necessary, to negotiate with its mysterious crew. The most powerful fleets of the galaxy would stand ready for war should diplomacy fail. But as the representatives gathered their forces and prepared for the mission, they all shared the same uneasy thought. What if this wasn't a negotiation? What if humanity had no interest in diplomacy at all? The fleet assembled quickly. It was massive, comprising ships from every corner of the galaxy, each one designed for battle, bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to rubble. The delegation was determined to face the Titan head-on, to assert their power, and remind humanity that they were not welcome in the galaxy. The idea of backing down was unthinkable. They had to show strength, or risk losing everything they had fought for. As the fleet moved toward the Titan's location, a strange silence hung over the Council's ships. There was no confidence in the air, only a palpable tension. Even the mightiest ships of the galaxy felt fragile compared to the overwhelming presence of the Titan, which still lingered like an ominous shadow. What kind of force could subdue the Xilar so effortlessly? What could humanity bring to bear that would make entire empires tremble? The fleet reached the remote planet, but just like before, the Titan did not react. It was still silent, still watching from orbit. The fleet's weapon systems hummed with readiness, but there was no indication that they would need to fire. No one knew what the next move would be, whether they would find a way to negotiate, or if the Titan would make its power known once more. The tension was unbearable, and as the fleet hovered above the planet, they waited. The galaxy waited. It was clear now, humanity's arrival was not the beginning of a war, but a shift in the balance of power. The galaxy had no choice but to confront the unknown, to face what they had feared without ever knowing it. The Titan had arrived, and it was time for the galaxy to reckon with the true meaning of fear. As the days passed, the galaxy's once confident leaders began to realize the full scope of the threat humanity represented. The Titan remained still, orbiting the remote planet as though it were a silent guardian, watching every move of the galaxy's most powerful empires. The initial shock of the Xilar fleet's failure had given way to something far more unsettling: uncertainty. The galaxy had always been a place of order, where power was defined by fleets, technologies, and vast networks of control. Now, that order was in jeopardy. The Xilar had been the first to fall, but they were far from the last to feel the weight of humanity's arrival. While the Titan had not yet launched a full-scale assault, it was clear that its presence was enough to disrupt everything. The galaxy's greatest powers, once certain of their invincibility, now found themselves on edge, watching the ship's every move as if it could descend on them at any moment. Each race now looked over its shoulder, wondering if they would be the next to feel the crushing weight of humanity's power. Panic spread like wildfire. Some species attempted to bolster their defenses, retreating to the safest corners of their empires, while others formed new alliances, desperate to pool their resources and strengthen their resolve. But no one knew how to combat the Titan, or what exactly it was capable of. The ship had never engaged in direct conflict, never revealed the full extent of its weaponry or its crew, but its mere existence had caused entire fleets to falter. And that uncertainty, more than anything else, was what terrified the galaxy the most. The Xilar, the galaxy's foremost technological power, began to probe deeper into the mysteries of the Titan. Their scientists worked around the clock, studying every available piece of data, trying to find a way to detect its weaknesses, a flaw that could be exploited. But each attempt to understand the Titan only led to more questions. Its technology didn't follow any known principles. It seemed almost as if the Titan was not bound by the same rules as every other ship in the galaxy. There was no signature energy pattern, no visible engines, no weakness that could be detected. The more the Xilar attempted to study the ship, the more they realized they were dealing with something far beyond their grasp. Meanwhile, the Urazi, a warrior race with an immense fleet and an aggressive nature, tried to rally their forces. Their generals sent word to the galaxy's military leaders, urging them to unite against the threat before humanity could make its next move. But the Urazi were not the only ones worried. The Council of the Xilar, an empire of diplomats and traders, issued a statement calling for calm, urging the galaxy to focus on diplomacy. Yet even their vast resources and reputation for political mastery seemed powerless against the growing fear that humanity's Titan had ignited. The tension was palpable across every star system. While some tried to act with reason, others were consumed by paranoia. The mere idea that a single ship, one that had never fired a weapon, could incapacitate entire fleets left the galaxy's greatest minds grasping for answers. The Titan was not a weapon of war, but a weapon of fear. And that fear spread faster than any attack could. It wasn't just the Titan's unmatched power that unnerved them, it was the fact that humanity had shown up unannounced, without asking permission, without warning, and without mercy. The galaxy had no idea what humanity wanted. No one could predict what they would do next. And that, above all, was the true source of terror. For the first time in a millennium, the galaxy had no answers. It was not just the rise of a new power, it was the collapse of everything they thought they knew. Humanity had shattered the illusion of invincibility, and now the galaxy was left wondering how long before they, too, learned the true meaning of fear. The galaxy had reached a breaking point. Weeks passed, then months, as the Titan lingered, its silent presence like a shadow looming over every civilization. The fear it had instilled was unlike anything the galaxy had experienced before. There were no grand speeches, no declarations of war. Instead, humanity's arrival had been marked by eerie silence and a power that felt beyond reach, as though the very fabric of the galaxy had been altered. Empires once confident and self-assured were now in disarray, each wondering if they would be next to feel the Titan's cold, paralyzing grip. The Galactic Council was in chaos. Despite their combined might, they had been unable to address the looming threat. The Xilar had failed to uncover any weaknesses in the Titan, and the Urazi had failed to engage it militarily. The Xilar's diplomatic channels were useless, as their offers of peace and negotiation went unanswered. Every attempt to make contact, to reach out to humanity, had been met with complete silence. The Titan simply watched. And that was enough to keep the galaxy on edge. Then, one day the galaxy got its answer. Without warning, the Titan moved. It was subtle at first, a shift in its orbit, a slow and deliberate adjustment that sent ripples through the galaxy. The Titan was no longer hovering in the distance. It was moving, making its way toward the heart of the galaxy, toward the center of power where the Galactic Council met. The silence had ended. The Titan was no longer content to watch. It was preparing to make a statement. As the Titan began its journey, panic spread like wildfire. The fleets of the galaxy, once united in fear, now divided by uncertainty, began to mobilize. Each empire scrambled to prepare, bringing their most formidable ships into position, but no one knew how to counter a ship that didn't follow the rules of warfare. The once mighty fleets of the galaxy, armed with weapons that could annihilate entire planets, now seemed like toys compared to the Titan. Its presence was not just a physical challenge, it was an existential one. It was as if the very notion of power had been turned upside down. As the Titan approached the Galactic Council's homeworld, the leaders of the Council convened one final time, knowing this was their last chance to take control of the situation. They did not know what would happen when the ship arrived, but they had no choice but to face it. The Council representatives were the most influential and powerful individuals in the galaxy, but even they had no answers. The tension in the Council chambers was palpable. The leaders sat in silence, their minds racing as they looked out at the massive fleet gathered around them, ready to defend their world at all costs. But even as they prepared for battle, a part of them could not shake the fear that no matter how many ships they had, no matter how many weapons they pointed toward the Titan, it wouldn't matter. They had already lost the moment humanity arrived. The Titan was within striking distance. The galaxy had braced itself for war. But deep down, they all knew this was something far worse. This was not about victory or defeat. This was about something much more profound, the realization that the galaxy's era of unchecked power was over. Humanity had arrived, and with it, a new force that could not be ignored. The Titan was the embodiment of that force, and as it closed in on the center of galactic power, the leaders of the Council were left to ponder a single, terrifying question: would they surrender? Or would the galaxy be forever changed by the unknown power of humanity? The Titan had arrived at the heart of the galaxy. The once proud Galactic Council, made up of the most powerful species in the universe, was now paralyzed by fear. The ships of their combined fleets hung in orbit above their homeworld, weapons primed and shields raised, but there was an undeniable truth settling over them. They were not ready for what was coming. The Titan had not fired a single shot, nor had it made a single aggressive move. And yet, its arrival was enough to send the galaxy's most powerful civilizations into disarray. The fleet, massive in size and strength, surrounded the Titan, but it was clear to everyone that they were powerless. They had no plan, no strategy, no idea how to engage with this unknown force. The Titan had crippled the Xilar without effort, and now it loomed above the heart of galactic power, a silent observer of the impending confrontation. Every ship, every soldier, every leader knew one simple fact: whatever power the Titan held, it was beyond anything they had ever seen. As the Titan positioned itself above the Council's homeworld, a wave of communication was sent out across the galaxy. But not from the Titan. No, this time it was from humanity. A single, simple message arrived, broadcast across every frequency, every channel. It was brief, without fanfare or flourish, and yet it carried more weight than any battle cry ever could. This is humanity. We have arrived, and you are no longer in control. The message echoed throughout the galaxy, filling every corner of the known universe with its chilling finality. No threats, no demands, no show of force. Just a cold, undeniable statement of reality. The power the galaxy had enjoyed for millennia was now in the hands of something else entirely, something new. And with that message, a universal truth was made clear. The galaxy's time of dominance was over. The Council, once filled with the mightiest of leaders, sat in stunned silence. There were no responses, no retorts, no counteroffers. The arrogance of millennia of unchecked power evaporated in an instant. For the first time, the galaxy realized that they had underestimated the one thing they had never fully understood: humanity. The ships in orbit, the vast armadas assembled to protect the galaxy's core, remained still, as though frozen in place. The Titan had not fired, had not even raised its weapons, and yet its presence was enough to strip the galaxy's leaders of their confidence. For a long moment, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next move. Would there be a war? A battle to end all battles? Or had the Titan already won without ever firing a single shot? The answer came not with violence, but with an unsettling quiet. The Titan did not engage, did not initiate a conflict, and did not give any further orders. It was as if the galaxy's greatest power was simply a force of nature, observing the galaxy in all its arrogance and decay, waiting for the inevitable surrender. And surrender they did. Slowly, one by one, the great empires of the galaxy began to acknowledge what had become painfully clear. Humanity had come, and they were no longer in control. The Titan was not here to conquer or destroy, it was here to reset the balance, to remind the galaxy that power, in the end, belonged not to those who held fleets or armies, but to those who could stand outside it all and make the universe bend to their will. In the wake of the message, the galaxy's leaders began to meet not with defiance, but with humility. The time of conquest was over, and the Titan, humanity's harbinger, had arrived not to wage war, but to stake claim to the future. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. The true meaning of fear was not in defeat, but in the realization that a power greater than all their empires had emerged. And now, humanity ruled the stars. Subscribe for more tales of humanity's rise, fall, and triumph among the stars. Until next time, keep dreaming beyond the stars.